All right, thanks. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, wherever you may be. So we're going to kind of go through Power BI, SSRS 2016, and talk about which one is going to work for you, or whether even both might work for you. So this is a question we get very, very frequently here at Pragmatic Works. They hear about Power BI, or they hear about reporting services, and they say, which one can I use? Which one can I use? And it's not really a clean-cut answer. There's a lot of it depends, and I hate to say that, but that is the fact of the matter. It's going to depend on what your needs are, what direction your company is headed to, what the size of your company, the financial situation, all sorts of things. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Just to quickly kind of summarize who we are, Pragmatic Works, we have products, services, training. We're probably most well known for our training, but believe it or not, the bulk of our revenue is based on our services. We do consulting, mentoring, provide solutions. And once again, my name is Sean Werrick. I'm a principal consultant here at Pragmatic Works. That is my mobile number. You're actually welcome to call me. I may not respond right away, but feel free to. That is my email address, swerrick@pragmaticworks.com. And I do have a blog out there. It's seanwerrick.com. So let's just jump right into Power BI. So, I know most of you are familiar with it, so I'll probably go through this kind of quickly, but I wanted to give everyone an idea. Looks like most of you know one or the other. Some of you may not know both. So I'm going to kind of go into what Power BI is, go into what SSRS is, and then we'll talk about some of the finer details and compare and contrast, because that's what we're really looking to do here. So Power BI is a suite of business analytics tools to analyze data and share insights. It provides a 360-degree view for business users, allowing you to get all your metrics in one place, can be updated in real time, and it can be available on almost all devices. Now this is from the Microsoft website, so I kind of have to put some of those keywords in there to make sure that you understand that just right out of the box some of these things don't show up like that. With one click you can explore the data, look at the dashboard, and the key word here is intuitive. So these tools are intuitive and finding answers are very easy. So this is a very analytical tool, and we'll talk about that. Creating dashboard is simple. They do have 50 innate connections to popular business applications, so that would be Salesforce, Dynamic CRM, any of those things, and those are what some of you may know are referred to as content packs. So that they do come pre-built with some dashboards already there with some experts that supposedly know the industry. So this is kind of the structure of how Power BI works. So you have the 50 apps, you get the QuickBooks, Salesforce, 48 others, but actually more than that. You have Power BI Desktop. This is where your development is going to be done. So this is actually a thick client. You actually go out and you download this client. It is updated once a month. And this is where you do all of your development. Then you deploy or you publish those and you connect your applications to the Power BI services, which is out there in Azure. So that's where all your dashboards reside. Now the data itself may or may not reside, and we'll talk about that. Because you can connect to your on-premises via Power BI gateway. So a lot of people have this misconception that, my data is in the cloud and, we can't really use it. So what do we do about that? Well, just because Power BI itself resides in the cloud, the data itself can sit on-premises. So if that is a risk for you, if it doesn't follow your HIPAA or CHI or CPI policy, you can have your data on premises and have connections that go back and forth. And then there's different ways to connect to. So you have Power BI gateways, but you can even get more robust and connect privately. There's a lot of different ways to do that. And then you access everything through that Power BI service on the cloud. So that would be your mobile device, your tablet, and of course your PC. So let's talk about some of the features that Power BI has. It's very, very fast to start up using, and I'll kind of walk through that very quickly, do a quick demo. It's free to start, so anybody can go out there, download Power BI, connect to some data sources, and start using it for free right away. Out-of-the-box dashboards, which are the content packs we referred to earlier. So if you're just if you're just looking for a Dynamics or a specific data set, Salesforce, any of those top, particularly SaaS solutions out there, software as a solution, those are going to be available. Immense number of data source options. Like I said, you can literally connect to, I don't know, 100 different data source options, and then even outside of that, you do have the workaround of ODBC and things like that. So it is possible to do real-time reporting. that would be direct query. So once again, where your data resides somewhere else, you can connect to that data directly, and it would be real time, or as real as your source system is refreshed. There is a Q&A feature, which is very nice. It's also referred to as a natural language, where you can go out to the Power BI website and you can say, what was my revenue for 2011? And provided that you've already created the report and the content and you've aliased your columns with keywords like revenue and year, and you name them appropriately, you'll actually get an answer right away. It's very neat. You have some collaboration capabilities in there, the ability to share, to lock down some things. It's pretty nice. It does come with a mobile app, so it's both the iOS and the Android, and I will hopefully get that working. I had it working yesterday, but for some reason it's not working today. That's just my screen sharing part, not the app itself. There is integration, and this is one of the things that I really like that they kind of undersell, but there is a REST API, so you can connect back and forth to your data in Power BI, and that includes the logging and the auditing features, so you can actually do BI on who's accessing your BI. So there is a screen to go and look at all that information, but I really like to drill into that information too and see, okay, what are most of my users accessing? What are their roles within my company? There's a lot of things you can do if you use the REST API and kind of pull it into your own repository. And once again, the security, there's various levels of security. You can actually lock things down at an all or nothing level, or you can do row level security. So you can say my sales guy in the Northeast, he's not allowed to see sales in the Southwest. And then there is web integration. So this is a great way to share content with external users without necessarily having to provide another license. Now there is an additional cost with that. You do have to pay for the number of renders, which is kind of, if you think about it, it's the number of clicks that you make in a Power BI session, if you will, clicking on things and slicing and dicing. But that's a great way to share that content with some of your external users, or you can actually provide them with a with a username and password and set them up in your own tenant if you want. So I kind of refer to the licensing, but this is a big deal. This is really important to know, because when you start to compare and contrast Power BI with SQL Server 2016 reporting services, you're going to want to know how much it's going to cost, and a lot of that's going to be based on the number of people you have. So starting off, they do call it for individuals and for business. The for business, of course, they call the Pro service. Excuse me. The individual one is free. So like I said, anyone can go out there and download this. The business one is about $10 per user per month. Both of them connect to cloud sources. Both of them have simple dashboard sharing. But, and then that's where the similarity starts to drop off. Now you're going to have to start paying for some of these additional features. So the ability to consume more than a gig of data per user. For Power BI Pro, it's capped at 10, but once again, we can get around that with the direct query. The refresh schedules are different. If you're running the free, you can only do it daily, as opposed to the Pro service, you can do it hourly. So once again, kind of the data thresholds here, 10,000 rows per hour. If you're using Pro, it's 1 million rows. Now, these 3 bullet points are assuming that you're actually pulling the data into Power BI as opposed to just connecting directly to something else. And then that's, the direct query I was talking about. We can connect to live data sources. So most commonly, people are using something like SQL DW or much easier and cheaper analysis services, either tabular or multidimensional. And then you can collaborate with your team using Office 365 groups. Manage access and sharing through Active Directory. This is a really big plus. This is somewhat recent when they give you the capability to do that using user principal name mapping and all sorts of things. It is a little bit more cumbersome than SQL Server reporting services, but we'll kind of discuss that. And then you can share data queries to the data catalog. So if you don't really want your users to go out to Power BI and use those dashboards and they still want to use Excel, you can share that data query. They can actually open it with Excel and do their normal pivot tables or whatever they want with Excel. So let's talk about security. This is a really big factor that you need to take into consideration. There's multiple layers of security with Power BI. There's Office 365 and tenants. So what it is it's basically If you're an O365 user, there is an admin center where you can add users. You can grant them access to create reports, to be admins of certain workspaces. That is for Power BI itself. Now, once you're actually on the site, then you can actually manage the permissions to grant members access to edit the Power BI content that's there, give them access to view it, and then going even a step lower, you can do row level security, define roles. You can map them to 80 roles. You can do it differently. There's a lot of flexibility there. And the nice thing is they did finally push that back to Power BI Desktop. I think originally it was only on the Power BI website. So when someone would go to redeploy a Power BI solution, they would have to recreate all that row level security. Well, now it's all integrated with Power BI Desktop, so you still have kind of that one place of deployment or a source of truth, if you will, and it helps with the data governance and release schedule. So there are some limitations with Power BI, particularly if you're connecting to workbooks. So a lot of people are getting their data from workbooks. If you're not, some of these things don't apply to you. But if you're pulling your data from Excel workbooks, there's about 6 different situations and scenarios here. Adam Saxton has a great blog on this. I would recommend going and looking at his videos out there on YouTube. I think it's Guy in a Cube. And he talks about a lot of these things, and this one in particular talks about the different scenarios, which ones require a Power BI license, which ones don't, and then some of them may or may not require a license, but some of them you have to have an action to be able to complete that. So for example, if you have scenario number 5 where you have less than a 10 megabyte workbook size, and your data model size is between 30 meg and 250 meg, you will have to have a license, and you will have to do a couple little tweaks to get it to work correctly. So those are just some things to keep in mind. If you really want to know some of these hard limits like this, I would click on the link, and Liz will supply this later, and see some of those details there. Okay, so just to show you a quick Power BI demo. So one of the greatest things about Power BI is the ability to build something extremely fast. So in my role, we are required, well, kind of not really, required to track our time and how we're spending it. So just to show you how quickly this is, I found this incredibly useful when I was trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I've been working more hours lately. Why is that? I can actually go out here and pull in my data and quickly find out where I'm spending my time. And the big thing that Power BI does so much better than a lot of other applications out there is the ability to derive insight very, very quickly. So as you can see, I have a list of fields here that are coming directly from my Power BI workbook. And you can see I just want to, let's see how my work is split up by customers, excuse me, and the number of hours that I spend on the customers. Actually, I don't want customers. Let's do by region. So we have different regions here in the U.S. I'll make that a bar chart. You can see right away, I can already see, yes, you can have your Excel workbook and you can see the numbers, but you can really, people derive a lot more insight from graphical representations of things as opposed to, numbers. Now I can pull in a responsibility group. Basically, this is the type of work that I'm doing, and I can make it a slicer. And now I can just look at general and see, look at this in the Northeast, I'm doing a lot of quote-unquote general work in my role. In other words, this isn't really project-related work. It's just part of my normal role. But if I were to look at project support, the Mid-Atlantic has really taken up a lot of my time in the Midwest. And so this was done in a matter of seconds. I think 30 seconds to put this together. So you can see right away that it's very, very quick to put things together. So when you get everything that you want done, now you can go in here and you can come in here and you can, when you get your data, there is a language called mashup, which will actually take in all of your data sources, and you can do, some column conversions, some typecasting, some of those things. So if I were to actually look at this, where'd it go here? Most people see this screen, but you can actually go a little bit deeper and where'd it go? There we go. So here's what most people see, and then you can come in here and you can, you can add columns, you can remove duplicates, you can merge queries. So in other words, that's kind of the same way of doing a join in SQL Server. Split columns up. So for example, if you have a full name column, you can split it up into first name, last name, a lot of things like that. And this is the advanced editor that most people don't really use, but I use it quite frequently. This is the mashup language I was talking about. So in here, you do have the ability to do recursion, to have variables, and you can pass parameters in here. It's very, very flexible. So while Power BI is very, very quick to stand up and very easy to get going, it also does have the ability to do some more advanced things, such as looping over multiple web pages, looping over files, things like that aren't done with the click of a button. So it's a pretty nice piece of functionality. So once you pull all of your data in, you do have the ability to create a data model. So for those of you that have done Excel, you do have the ability to do pivot tables. It's almost the same exact thing. So I could have 4 or 5 tables in here. I can join them up. And what this does is this is where the real work is being done, all the horsepower of when I click on things, it knows what to show me based on how I relate them. So if I had multiple tables, like click and drag, the columns that link together, and when I click on different items in that model or in this page, it knows that when I click on this to show me all the things in the other thing. That's where a lot of the power comes in for Power BI. Real quickly, I can publish this in a matter of seconds. I can save it, publish it. I can publish it wherever I want. And for those of you that don't know, this is actually, if you go out and actually look at the file itself, it's a .pbix file, but this is actually a zip file. So it's what it is 6 or 7 different files that are kind of crunched together and compressed together. So if you wanted to change this file and change the extension to .zip, you can extract it and actually look and see what's going on. So you can see how big your model size is, you can see how big your data is, you can see some of these advanced settings that you may not normally look at. So one of the great things, so if I were to go here, so this is Power BI. Now let's go out to the Power BI site. So I do all that work and I deploy it. So this is where it goes. So this is app.powerbi.com. So I'm in here, and this was that natural language that I was talking about. And I can say, I can say how many hours spent for the Northeast, and what it's doing is it's showing me all the Northeast work that's been going on, but right away it's actually deriving some insight, and I could actually further define it. And now it's filtering, and you notice that Rachel's name is the only one that shows up. I can keep filtering it and filtering it. And for me, the power in this is maybe people that are not as technically savvy, or maybe you don't want to traverse, a directory that's 7 layers deep to find what you're looking for. You have an idea what you want to go look for. You don't know where the report is. Reporting Services does give you the capability to type in the report name or a field that's in the report, but you can't ask a question. You can't say, what was my revenue for 2012? Here I can actually see the amount of time spent in the Northeast region by Rachel Martino. So it's actually very, very cool. Of course, this comes with the caveat that you do need to build out the content. You do have to build out the reports and put some value to those things that you want to have questions asked for. So one of the great things is the ability to collaborate and share. So as you can see, somebody shared this with me. It's a census data. I can turn around and I can actually share that with somebody else. Jason Shu shared this with me. This is actually a really cool ML demo he did on census data. But I can go here and I can say I want to share this to Steve Hughes, who's my boss. I can say, hey Steve, here's some great census data. And then I can allow them to share it if I want, or I can just say, all right, send me a notification when they receive it, hit the share button, and he'll get an email with the link. He clicks on the link, and boom, it shows up on his workspace. So you do have a lot of other capabilities in here that a lot of people don't really know about. So for example, this particular fake data set here is a fake data set, but it's based on contributions for a church. You can actually click on the data set, click on this quick insights, or analyze in Excel. So let's come back to what I was saying. If you wanted to just share the data set, your users can analyze them in Excel just like they wanted to before. but I can do quick insights. And what that does is it literally takes the data and does its own kind of machine learning heuristic and algorithm against it to come up with very, very quick insight. About half of it is not really worth much, but about half of it actually I find somewhat useful, things that I didn't really know just by clicking around in my own data models, things that you may look at and say, hey, I think I want to make a report around that. As soon as it's done, for example, you can see, notice Minnesota has noticeably more pledged amounts. Right away you can see it's really giving a lot of content. Some of it is obvious. So for example, there's a correlation between the amount people pledge and the amount people they actually give. Yeah, that's pretty common sense. But there's some of them that don't make, aren't really intuitive. So these different campaigns, this one's doing better than this, these are outliers, things like that. So it's really pretty cool. Trying to think. There are a lot of other features in here, but I just wanted to brush on those somewhat quickly and show you some of the things it does. It does do the row level security. It does do, where you can lock it down by region. But let's just go back here. So let's talk about Reporting Services 2016 now. So we kind of get an idea of Power BI, how quick it was for me to stand something up. So Reporting Services 2016. So the definition, it's a server-based report. This is an important distinction. Power BI is software as a service. You don't manage the servers. You don't manage the patches, the upgrades, the hardware. It does all of that for you. The only thing you do have to do is update your Power BI desktop, and you do get an alert. So actually, every time I open up Power BI, there's a setting in there that if there is an update, it will tell me in the bottom right corner saying, hey, there's a new update, go download it. So they do release content every month because it is PAS. They're very flexible, very agile. But SQL Server Reporting Services is a server-based report, so you do have to maintain your own hardware with that, unless you go up to the cloud. That's another discussion, I suppose. But it's part of Microsoft SQL Services. I think everybody knows this. Here's one of the distinguishing factors. They have paginated reports. They've done this since 2004, I think, and then of course it became packaged in 2005. So the only thing is it hasn't really changed very much. I think most people would say it's been the same thing for about a decade. Yes, there have been a couple of improvements here and there, but nothing really changed until they did the acquisition of DataZen. They went out and bought a company that did some really fantastic visualizations. A lot of you have probably used this before, and for those of you that do have it, there is a migration wizard. You can actually migrate your DataZen reports to Reporting Services 2016. But the DataZen technology is great, and what it did was it took the really nice Active Directory integration with Reporting Services. So to me, the visualizations were never that appealing, but the AD security was very good, very stable, allowed you to, grant access to certain things based on their role or their principal. And DataZen does the same thing, except now you've got that nice AD feature to go along with it as well. So you can kind of keep the same security model that you had. DataZen technology, you can actually, or the web reports, you can obviously access it from your cell phone, but you can also access it from your tablet or just straight through the web page. So it has multiple mediums of delivery. And then, of course, SSRS does have analytical reports and charts. You can create those with Excel. And this is the on-premise approach. So remember, Power BI is going to be your cloud solution. SSRS is your on-premises solution. But we're going to give you a little kicker at the very end where you might actually be able to use both. So there are different versions of SQL Server Reporting Service 2016. You need to know what those are, and you need to know what can do what. So there is an integrated mode. Some of you are probably running SharePoint. That would be integrated mode, and what that does is it gives you the ability to scale out. Native mode is one server and one server only. So integrated mode, you can have a farm, and you can actually have 10 servers running reporting services, and you can kind of scale that out. The only thing is, if you're running in integrated mode, you are not going to get all of the kind of new, nice hotness, if you will, whatever you want to call it, of the DataZen acquisition. So you're not going to be able to have your customized parameters pane. You're not going to be able to get the web portal, the mobile reports, the KPIs. Can't pin to Power BI. You can't render Power BI reports. So some security basics with reporting services. It's important because it's important in every company. You need to be able to lock down data at the right level of granularity to the right role. Different types. You can have data security or report security. Data, obviously, you have access to a data set or you don't. Report security, you have access to a report or you don't. And sometimes you can combine the two. Usually it's role-based, so you will fall under an Active Directory role or group or principal, however you like to phrase it. So for example, you're part of a BI team, usually you have a BI role, and in that BI role they have read access to this, write access to that, etc., etc. So there are same with publisher, browser, people that can look at it. Business users go out and create the reports, and then my reports role, etc. There are system-based. In other words, you have the ability to add users, you have the ability to basically do any of those things. And then a system user role, which is exactly what it says. Now, one of the things a lot of people don't really consider that you should is in 2016, really consider using SQL Server 2016. They do have Power BI. The policy is at the database level. You do have to pass authentication through. So in other words, you can't have any stored credentials. But if you're passing the user's security all the way through, you can actually have it to where Bob only sees what Bob's allowed to see in the Northeast, and Sue only sees what she's allowed to see in the Southwest. And then, of course, users do have to be part of an AD role. And just to kind of dig in here and show you reporting services in the past difference. It's completely turned upside down, and that's directly due to the data design acquisition. So you still have these same, pixel perfect, standard Visual Studio reports that you can put together, but there's some new things too. You'll notice there's this Power BI icon here. You can actually pin any graphs and charts that you have. So going back to what I had here, you'll notice, where'd it go? I do have a reporting services report that I pinned to Power BI. And when I click on this, it can take me to reporting services. So this is what I was talking about, where you can actually use both. You don't have to use one or the other. So you can have maybe some of your analytics and your KPIs on Power BI, and then when they click on that, boom, they go to the detailed view right here, and they can see some of those really lower level grain reports. So to me, that is what the purpose of paginated reports is the lowest grain reports. You're not going to be doing a lot of analytics on it. These are more things you want to print out and look at and maybe deliver to customers. So reporting services 2016, you have the ability to export to any of these Word, etc. Want to change, for example, PowerPoint, I think the default is 16 by 9, but if you don't want that, if you want it to be 4, you can change it, but it is at the server level. I'm hoping this is a change they're going to make, where they can actually give you the ability to export a PowerPoint in 4 by 3 or 16 by 9. So for example, if I click on this PowerPoint link, I would hope that another box would pop up saying, what format do you want it in? Things like that. But as of right now, it's an all or nothing type thing. It's a service setting. So either you do 16 by 9 for all of your reports, or you do 4 by 3. And if you want to look at what some of those settings are, they are in config files, and you can reach out to me and I can give you some content on that. You also have the ability to, so of course we have the save, the PDF. You also can print the PDF. And this is HTML5 now. So what that means is it's cross-browser compliant. So no matter what browser you open up, it should look almost the same every single time. With that, you don't have the security holes of, I think it was ActiveX before with the printing, and you open it up on Explorer and it would look one way, or sometimes it would only open up with Explorer and it wouldn't open with any other browsers. Now you have cross-browser compatibility. You have the ability to have your parameters moved around. So now, before it was a little bit difficult to move these parameters around. You can actually move them wherever you want. It's a little bit easier to use, and when you look at the report, you can actually collapse it. I think that was part of 2014. It's not new, but it's nice to have. But now you go, we still have the same report. This is the one that I pinned, and of course, this is an analysis services cube connection. But so those are the paginated reports, and those are all in here. And you'll notice they break it down. So this is kind of they call it the web portal, and the reason is they want it to be a one-stop shop for all of your on-premises users. So you have folders. You can break these folders down to different business groups. So for example, you might have an accounting folder, you might have an operations folder, you might have a finance folder, you might have a developers folder, and in each side of those you might have KPIs, mobile reports, and paginated reports. So those are the three levels of reports. The KPIs will show you, what your goal is against your target. Those are usually very, very high level, and of course your mobile reports are something like this. So this is a brand new feature. This is some dummy data, but you'll notice when I click and hold the mouse down, I do get some additional information that pops up at the top. So it's telling me category A, metric 1, $10.5 million, et cetera, et cetera. Now these reports can actually drill down, so you can have something that's a higher level, drill down into a little bit lower level, but they are only between mobile reports. So it's a pretty cool feature. You can select on this, and it looks, if you notice, it's very similar to the way Power BI works. You click on things, and you'll see the numbers change. They're changing, these shift. So it is used for analytics as well. One of the other nice things about reporting services, besides this, you can actually change the way it looks and feels. You go to the site settings. That's called branding. First off, you can change the name. So if you just want to give it a generic name, now it's going to show up as My Web Portal. But you can also come in here and do what's called branding, which is you give it your own look and feel. So here, Pragmatic Works, we want to give it, we're going to go. Make it look like our colors, our logo, and just like that, it looks a lot different. It's got our logo at the top, it's got our colors. It's not as granular as, for those of you that have SharePoint experience, it's not that low grain with the CSS style sheets where you can, change every single little thing. You do have one or two values for some things that are used for multiple things. So what this is this is actually an image file combined with an XML file, which points to the image file, and then it points to another file, which is a color file. And that color file is actually a JSON file. So in there you can specify what color you want your positive KPIs to be, what color you want your negative ones to be, because you don't want probably a hard red. You might want something a little bit softer. You might want them to maybe be yellow. You may want, this font to be a white instead of blue. So there's a lot of flexibility, but it isn't the lowest grade of flexibility. And as of right now, once again, you can see it does have Power BI desktop reports at the bottom, and you can share them. This is the security model where you click on the manage, has the Active Directory security, where I come in here and I can actually add a group. But as of right now, when I click on this report, what it does is it's similar to clicking on a movie file or an Excel file. It just asks you to download it, and if you click open, it's going to look for the MIME type of that file and see if you have an application that matches it. Sure enough, I do have Power BI Desktop. So what it's doing is it actually is opening the client. It is not rendering in reporting services. So as of right now, that's the way it works. You click on this, it's just like the way we had it in Power BI sites. So it was something they threw in, I think, last minute, just to show that they really wanted to have an on-premises solution for Power BI. And I'll show you in a bit. They do, in fact, render in a technical preview. So moving forward, you will be able to click on this and it will render. So I think that's all I wanted to show about that. Let's go back to. So let's talk about pricing. This is the kicker. Each of you is going to have an EA. I don't know what your enterprise agreement was. I don't know who your reseller is. This was MSRP straight off the website. So this is the kind of number crunching you're going to have to do. So if price is a big factor, you're going to have to figure out these two keys. What are the number of users? How many users do I have? And how long am I going to keep the solution? Because if you plan on upgrading SQL Server 2016 to 2018, which probably will come out, you may not want to do that. If you have a low number of users, you can see you save a lot of money with Power BI. It's about $25,000, $30,000 cheaper. But once you get to a larger number of users, now the price really starts to go up. So this is because of the per user per month. You're paying for each user as opposed to each server. And now I did just the standard 8 cores. 8 cores is this, this amount. So these are the numbers you're going to want to look at, and of course you'll want to get this detailed information from whoever your reseller is. So that's important, but let's talk about the strategy too. You have a strategy hopefully within your organization. How do we want to present content to our users? What do we want to do in terms of sharing, collaborating, all of those things? So let's talk about the different types of SSRS reports and compare them to Power BI. So mobile reports is kind of a design-first approach. I think both of them, and I'll go over this in a minute, I think both of them should be more of a data approach, but it's a design-first approach. Has the on-premises capability, larger reports, KPIs, they both have KPIs, some limited visuals. What you get with mobile reports is what you get. Power BI, on the other hand, you do have a cloud service. You do have an interactive tool, and you can actually create your own custom visuals. It's actually, I think, Node.js and D3 and all sorts of things. You can create your own custom visuals, and if you don't want to create some, but you don't like all of the ones that are in Power BI, you can actually import custom ones that other people have written. And the number of data sources are much more numerous with Power BI. Paginated is another key point. Do I have to have paginated reports? I can tell you that 9 out of 10 times, you don't. We've done so much work for customers with reporting services, and you'd be surprised. I think what happens is people get stuck in a mindset, I have to see my data, I have to have my Excel just like this, it has to print out. They can still have their Excel with either one of these solutions, right? You can still point to a reporting services data source for Excel, or you can point to a data source for Power BI. But those paginated reports, if you have to have those, and the only time I ever see it being a requirement is SEC compliance, SOX compliance, you're actually sending a paginated report to the customer, you don't need them. You really don't. Most of the time people take those reports and they're looking at the numbers, and in their head they're actually deriving their own kind of bar charts and looking at the gradients and the slopes of things and figuring out the relationships in their head. So once again, to compare them, Power BI is a cloud-first approach. SSRS is on-premises. Power BI has monthly updates. SSRS, you have to patch and you have updates. They're not as frequent. I think we've had one, CU2. We've had 2 updates since RTM, since release. Power BI is PaaS. Reporting services is IaaS. This is a real big one. So if you want to move away from supporting any kind of infrastructure, so in theory, Power BI can scale infinitely. That's the kicker. Reporting services, not so much unless you go with integrated mode, and then even then you're losing some of the functionality. Power BI, no paginated reports, so if that's a deal breaker, gotta have it. You gotta go with reporting services. Both have row-level security. Reporting services has branding, Power BI does not. I don't know if that's a big deal for you, but Power BI has custom visualizations. I'm going to say no custom visualizations for reporting services. Power BI has the quick insights, Power BI has a natural language, and Power BI has dashboards. So reporting services 2016, I don't think will have dashboards. I think all it has is the web portal. And what you can do on the web portal is you can actually, over here on your home button, you can actually click on things that you really like, and you can put a star on it or not. So what happens is, see right now I have no favorites. If I were to come over to here, click on Add to Favorites. What happens is every time you log in, it will default to favorites, and so you can actually default the ones you want. But you have to go out and find those. You have to go out and find the reports that you want, make them your favorite, and then you'll see them every day. So I always like to start with a foundation. I always like to start with the lowest grain. I capture my data at the lowest grain, and this is usually a table, right? A table. The report type, it's a detailed report, it's a paginated report, and usually it's something for external customers. I build on top of that. I usually take and I aggregate that, and I have a medium grain. That's maybe data instead of the lowest grain might be by day, medium grain might be by month or by quarter or something like that. Those are your analytics, those are your dashboards, those are your quick insights, and some of your mobile. Those are your business users, your analysts, data scientists, etc. Then I go one level higher, that's the high grain. Those are my KPIs, those are my operational reports, and those are my mobile reports. And those are usually your executives and some of your analysts. And of course, that doesn't mean that any other role can't use KPIs, but those are the primary users. And now they have the capability with, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, they actually made it public. They do have SSRS 2016 can render Power BI reports. So if I come back to the home page, they do have Power BI desktop reports. And when I click on it, notice that the page is rendering it. It's not downloading it. It's actually being run by the reporting services service. And I can do the same things that I could before, mostly. So the important thing to bear in mind is this is a technical preview. As of right now, you cannot see, so just to back up here, you can see mobile reports on the Power BI app. See if this is working here. Nah, it's not working. I'm just trying to share, but the Power BI app you can actually use for both. So this is what I was talking about. They're really trying to let you use both of them. If you use the Power BI app for Android or iOS, you can use it to look at your Power BI reports. You can also use it to look at your Reporting Services 2016 mobile reports. What you cannot use it for right now is the Reporting Services 2016 Power BI reports. So when I went, and I just did this last night, I have no idea what's working now, but when I went and looked, I could look at all my mobile reports, but this new functionality, I cannot see that with my phone yet. So I am pretty confident it will be there. However, I do not think they're going to have dashboards. So for example, in our Power BI, we do have any of these dashboards. You can put a whole bunch of different reports there, and it's kind of like your go-to screen. Well, remember, Reporting Services has the same thing, right? So they have their own thing where they want your own landing page where you come here and you click on your favorites, and it shows you all the things that you really want to see every day. So I don't think they're going to have quote-unquote dashboards. Now, the other thing to note is that this version only works with, so where did it go? This one. So the rendering of Power BI and reporting services only works on tabular and multidimensional data right now. They will be incorporating other data sources. But remember, so for I didn't really go into a lot of detail, but if you are using direct query, in other words, that's how they're connecting to tabular, that's how they're connecting to multidimensional, pulling in those other data sources, you can't pull those into direct query mode and the same model. It gets really hairy, really tricky. One of the other nice things that I saw, so we had in Power BI the ability to share data and send a message, but what if I really want to go out there and collaborate and say, hey Bob, look at the sales for June. Why are they so much lower than they were for May? In reporting services, you have the capability to do that in the new technical preview version. You can click on comments, and I can say things like, this comes from the data MPs. They had this before. If I say, notice how New Mexico has no data. Why is that? So you'd be able to do that. Can't do it now. They're working on it. But you'd be able to post a comment. Oh, yeah, you can. There you go. And it shows my name, so I'm logged in as me, but you can see that, and then somebody can respond to me right there, or you can start a new thread, very similar to how you do in a Yammer or Slack or some of those things to really collaborate. So that, to me, is a really cool capability, and I say that because I had to build this by hand, and it sucked. So this is a really, really nice feature that a lot of executives, whether someone like myself, like a developer, I didn't really see a lot of value in it until I started working with some of the senior level management. It's extremely valuable because their time is so valuable. Being able to jump on here and collaborate without email, without all these things, looking at the visual and putting comments and responding to each other is extremely valuable. So so I think that was it. One of the last things I did want to say is that you can use both. You can use both. You can use Power BI for most of your stuff, and you can also have reporting services to serve up your paginated reports if that's what you actually really had to have. So we had a lot of content in a very short amount of time, but hopefully you can see which one might work for you. It's a case-by-case situation. Know what your pricing is, know what your business requirements are, know what your user loads are, know how much you need to scale, etc., etc. Questions?
Yep, there's a lot, so bear with me. All right. Do you have to have a pro license of Power BI to view an SSRS Power BI report?
No. So if you're using the mobile app, you do not have to have a pro license. Oh, wait, to look at, yes, you do. You do have to have a pro license to look at them, to use the mobile reports. That was in, let me go back here. Right here. So that's the mobile reports piece. You do have to have, it's native mode, but you do have to have it for the, well, you know what, I have it bookmarked. Let me look it up and I'll get back to you. I'll put it to you, Liz, and I can send that question and answer out.
Okay. Any word on what features will be available for Power BI on SSRS 2016 that is on the technical preview?
You have the ability to join to analysis services tabular, analysis services multidimensional, and also one thing to throw out there for those of you that don't know and are interested in moving to the cloud and really want to scale, it's in preview mode now, analysis services software as a service. So you can literally go out there, spin up a tabular cube in a matter of minutes, scale it up, scale it out. But going back to the question, they're going to be able to connect to, I think, all the same data sources as before. So as of right now, if I think I tried to deploy my Power BI site that was connecting to Salesforce, it didn't work because it's only accepting the two connections of tabular or multidimensional, but they will be able to do all the same connections as before. The only thing is whether it renders in the app, I don't know. I would assume so, but I think it's going to be a lot of the same functionality. I don't know that they're going to have row-level security because I think they're kind of trying to use SQL Server 2016 security. A lot of it I just don't know. They just presented the stuff at PASS last week. So,
Power BI service versus desktop, what's the difference?
Power BI service runs in Azure. Power BI desktop, it's your own machine. So that's a good question. I didn't really specify that. But Power BI desktop, it's a similar technology, except it uses your laptop resources or your machine resources as opposed to the cloud. So if you have a really big model, you might notice your laptop is dragging. That's because it's putting it in memory. It's using the X-Velocity engine, it's compressing it. It's doing it all on your machine. And then once you deploy it to the cloud, what happens is it takes that file, unzips it and does all these things with it, and then it scales it out. Because remember, it's software as a service, so it can scale out as wide as it needs to be scaled.
Can Power BI access Business Objects Universe?
I'm 99% sure it can. I can go look, but I'm pretty sure.
Is the language you referred to as mashup also known as M?
Yes.
Can you restrict others from sharing with others?
Yes. So when I went to do the share, so I'm assuming that's the Power BI side. When I want to share a data set, so let's say I come here and I want to share this. There we go. Oh, is it a dashboard? Yeah, it's a dashboard. So if I want to share it, you just unclick this and don't allow them to share your dashboard.
Great. Can an on-screen visualizer be clicked to show the underlying data set?
Can it show the underlying data set? Well, what you want to do, I think I understand what you're saying. If I click on something, can I see the detail for it? And the closest example I have to this is something that, let's see, where to go. It's something like mine. Give it a sec to open up here. And what I do is I have a list of customers. So this goes back to the paginated issue. I don't need paginated. I don't need to see data by page. I just need to be able to derive some insight. And as I'm clicking on things, I want to see how it all relates. So I have a list of accounts down here. You'll notice it's got multiple pages. But I don't really care about this unless I'm looking at something by region. So when I click the South Central, I've only got 4 different customers here. So the answer is yes, but you have to set it up the way you want it to be presented.
Okay. Can you develop mobile reports in Visual Studios?
So there is a mobile reports, let me show you here. There's actually a mobile reports, there we go, this right here. So there's actually a SQL Server mobile report publisher. It's not done with Visual Studio. Visual Studio is still going to be used for your paginated reports, and you can use Visual Studio to create your data sets. But to create your mobile reports, you're going to use this SQL Server mobile report publisher. And this is almost an exact replica if you'd use it as the DataZen publisher. So what you do is you first create your visualizations, then you point it to data, and then you do some tweaks. So this is a new tool, and that brings up a good point. Power BI is much more intuitive, much quicker to stand things up. This is by no means terrible. It's not like, you know, the reporting services of 2005, but it does take a little bit of learning. And we do have a course on that. We have a mobile reports class on that.
Can SSRS 2016 work against SQL 2014, or do you need to have SQL 2016 installed?
No, so you have to have SQL Server Reporting Services 2016 installed, but it can report against any data that you want. So I think the question is, can I not pay for a license at all and just install 2016 Reporting Services 2016? The answer is no. You do have to have a license, but you only need the one license for the report server instance. So, you know, you might save some money, and you know, it doesn't mean. So going back to the security piece, you don't have to upgrade to the SQL Server 2016 database where your data might be housed. Like I was talking about the row-level security, you can have a SQL 2014 instance that feeds reporting services. It's 2016.
We have SSRS 2016 on native. I do not see the web portal. How do I enable that feature?
It should just, in native mode, you don't see the web portal. It should just be localhost / and now mine is it's usually reports, but I changed mine to say web portal because I really do feel that this is more like a web portal. So it should be whatever your host is, IP address is, / reports, just like the other reporting services. If you don't see it, you don't have access. I have a feeling, I don't know, something's going on with the security.
Okay.
Look at the report server configuration. So go to the report services configuration, make sure that the service accounts are correct and stuff.
Can we publish our Power BI reports on SSRS 2016 on-prem?
With the technical preview, yes. So what happens is actually in the Power BI desktop, so if I were to come here, what you do is you do File, Save As, and I don't have the newest edition, but there's a way to, you can publish from desktop to reporting services, or you do like what I did here, and I do the new, or I do upload. I can go and select the the Power BI file. Sorry. But that's only in technical preview as of now. So if you have reporting services, just the regular one, you're going to get the version where it will download the file and open them with Power BI Desktop. You would have to have the technical preview, which is available in the Azure Marketplace, or you can actually, I think you can download it as well, in order for it to render within reporting services.
Is the ability to do Power BI within SSRS 2016 available in both standard and enterprise SSRS 2016?
They haven't released that information yet. It's still in technical preview. I would assume so, but I don't know. Yeah, if we go back to that slide, they may not. I don't have any answer though because they haven't released that information. I'm not important enough to know it.
Okay. I know we are out of time, and Sean, there are a ton more questions, so I'm going to send all these questions to Sean, and I'm sure he usually posts the blog, and then we can post that on our site as well. As always, this session is recorded, so you will get an email with the link to that tomorrow. Sean, I have a couple of people asking if you're going to share your slide deck.
Yes,
yes.
I'm going to email it to you right now.
Okay, well there you go. So if you would like Sean's slide deck, please email me, Liz. It's the email that comes with all your GoToWebinar information. If you have any questions that you didn't get to put in the panel, you can either email me or Sean if you happen to save his email address, and we will be happy to get those answered for you. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Sean, and we will see you guys next time.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.